Welcome to Total Health. I'm John Barson. We have I think we're going to have a great conversation today. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. We're going to have Dallas Brodie join me in a couple of moments here. I just want to introduce her first. I have to refer to my notes. I don't want to make any mistakes on this one. It's too important. Dallas Brodie, if you're not familiar with her, is the interim leader of OneBC and MLA for Vancouver Quilchena. She's a lawyer and advocate for community values. Dallas founded OneBC, the newest political party here in British Columbia. She is determined to champion policies that lower taxes, defend families, reform democracy, and boy, do we need that right now, preserve the environment, and deliver world-class healthcare, education, and public infrastructure. She has a bold vision. She wants to overhaul BC's healthcare system to align with global best practices. And I'm not referring to the WEF, the WHO, or the WHA. There are good practices out there. We're going to find the best ones and work with them, I think. She wants to ensure healthier lives for all, protect individual freedoms, which is very important, which is not happening right now in British Columbia, by the way, and we're going to get into that for sure. Ms. Brodie has been a vocal critic of recent legislation like the Health Professions and Occupations Act, the Legal Professions Act, and the Emergency and Disaster Management Act. All three of those acts in combination are disasters, and this has all taken place since 2022. These laws were passed under the NDP government, and they have raised a lot of concerns about democratic erosion and centralized control, particularly in health and legal professions. But today, we're going to explore Dallas's commitment to making British Columbian lives longer, happier, and healthier, and her plans to restore transparency and accountability, and her vision for a freer, more prosperous BC if elected. And we're going to bring her in right now, and there she is.
Hi, John.
For some reason, I expected a drum roll, but after that introduction, I really needed a drum roll.
Well, thank you for that introduction. That was really well done.
Well, I've been following you for quite some time. I know that you have formed this new political party, OneBC, and boy, I mentioned to you in our pre-show that my grade 10 political science teacher here in Chilliwack said, "John, don't waste your time. Just go into politics." After a debate we had in class one particular time. And it's taken, let's see, that would be about 50 years, but I'm finally getting involved in politics, apparently. You're my first person-to-person real interview with a politician. So,
Well, interesting
we'll
because it took me, we're probably around the same vintage, and here I am at this age getting involved in politics. It's really new to me as well. I was a citizen like you until last October, and I still consider myself a citizen in the legislature, not a politician.
Right.
And I think that's what we need, and I'm hoping that I can maintain that role because it's about sticking with your principles and not getting sucked into the whole scene there that happens to you when you get to Victoria.
Well, that just seems to be the problem everywhere when it comes to politics. I mean, didn't want to bring Trump up in this, but just look at what he ran on. Uh, Ending all wars, whatever, all these different things. And now the first thing he does when he builds his cabinet is he puts the biggest neocon warmongers in the country
Well,
on his cabinet. Like, how was he? I mean, my
think
point is, I don't want to talk about Trump a whole lot, but
I think part of the problem is that you've got to be careful not to overpromise, and you have to make realistic commitments, and then really work on delivering on that. And what I found is since I've been in Victoria, is I used to wonder how come politicians say they're going to do A, B, and C, and then they get there, and you watch them not do it. And I've actually now seen with my own eyes how it happens. You very quickly get controlled by what I call the blob. It
right.
just it starts happening where everybody, and I don't blame people because the media is ready to attack you anytime you step out of line on anything. So you have to be. Um, Everybody gets so scared to speak or step out of line or say anything that will be even slightly controversial. So, and it's also the control that the party starts exercising over you. And it's a process of almost controlling you, containing you, and the promises that were made start getting um, diluted.
Right.
And there are only sort of three safe topics, and it's really hard to watch happening. And but this is what happens, and so now I understand.
No,
And I think, but our party wouldn't do that. What we plan to do is bring people in who are going to be bold and speak, because in opposition, and I actually see Tara and I see Tara and me, to have my grammar correct here. I see Tara, I see myself as being with Tara, the real opposition now, because we are standing up and asking questions that no one else will dare touch because they're just too energized and too controversial. But
right.
everybody wants the questions asked. And one of the best parts about having formed a party as opposed to being independents is that now we have official standing in the legislature, and we will get the Green Party, for example, gets one question in question period every day. We will hopefully be given the same privilege, and we will also get access to committees. We will be allowed to make what are called 2-minute statements in the House when we want. And we will be also officially on the list for things that are going on instead of running around trying to find out where everybody is half the time. So we
Right.
will, and so we can really do some good work now. So we're
Well,
very excited about this fall's session.
right. Well, like I said, I house flies in here. They're going to drive me crazy. I have fly strips everywhere. Just you can't. How do you get rid of these flies? My house is
I
spotless,
don't
but
know.
they come in the windows, they come in the doors. Anyways, I have to get a hazmat suit on. Just distract me. They distract me.
They are
Um,
distracting.
they're just distracting. They're all on my monitor. I'm like, I'm trying to read something, and I'm like, get out of the way. But anyways, they're harmless. Um, yeah, I mean, you left. I mean, just the way you had to leave the Conservative Party. It's
Yes.
there's case in point, right? You spoke up
Yeah.
about something you believed in, and by the way, you're going to explain a little bit about that. I
Sure.
actually did a whole bunch of, and we're going to get into. I'm going to explain a little bit about using AI throughout this, but um, I literally tried. I ran on Grok a query asking for evidence about what you're going to talk about in a moment here, and
Mhm.
it ran and ran and ran and ran, kept running, and it's the little thing is just going round and round. And I went and made coffee. I came back and sat down and went to the bathroom. Came back and still round and round and round, and then finally nothing. Couldn't find any evidence of what you're going to talk about. So what happened there?
So with the expulsion, yes. I've
Yeah,
I've talked quite I've talked to different groups about this, and it's an important story
it
because
really is.
uh, um, I was in the legislature and I was one of the two attorney general critics for the BC Conservative Party, and I was also one of the, just going back a little bit further than that, I was one of the original, um, basically very original people who got this party going several years ago, and a group of us worked really hard to pull this together. So this wasn't just me coming to the table late in the day. I had worked really hard to be in the ledge, and I had never done politics before. It's really hard work, and it was a tough journey, but we got there. And I was one of the two attorney general critics, and a story came up in the media about the Law Society and a lawyer who is suing the Law Society for defamation, something that's never happened before at the Law Society of British Columbia. It's the long-standing self-governing body that oversees lawyers. And
Right.
so this lawyer's name is Jim Heller. He's an amazing man. And what happened was he was taking the now mandatory course that the Law Society requires every lawyer to take. That is, I don't know the exact name of it, but it's basically the Indigenous training so that you understand some history and get understanding about Indigenous situations. And every lawyer has to take it now. I think it's a 6 or 10 hour course. And in those course materials, I'm going to make this as short as I can. In those course
Okay.
materials was a reference to this horrific announcement that was made in, I believe it was May of 2021, about the discovery of 215 buried children in a mass grave at the Kamloops Indian Residential School, KIRS.
Right.
And that announcement kicked off this huge national uh, shame and media crazy, where the mast of Canada, the flag of Canada was lowered to half mast for 5 months. The the media exploded all around the world that Canada was a genocidal nation. The the New York Times had something on the cover, like literally the next day or two, saying just Canada is genocidal, and and people were devastated about this. It was understandably a terrible story, and it was not good. And following that, enrolled the big push to bring UNDRIP, which is the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, into Canada and commit to it, and so on. And there was a lot of fallout from that. But as it stands at this point, that there have not been 215 bodies or any bodies unearthed at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. As of today, there has not been any digging, and there has not been any exhumation of any bodies. So it's simply, there had been a ground penetrating radar search done, and they had seen anomalies in the soil. And even the woman Sarah Bolio, who did the ground penetrating radar, said that they were anomalies in the soil. But people, I think, jumped to this horrible conclusion prematurely. And anyway, that has resulted in a lot of things happening. So there was a reference to these 215 bodies still contained in the legal materials at the Law Society of British Columbia. And this lawyer, Jim Heller, and another lawyer wrote to the Law Society to say you need to correct the materials. Email after email went to the Law Society. No responses were forthcoming. And these emails were simply suggesting that the word potential should be added in front of the word burials. So potential burials. And then at the end, there was a sentence in the materials that said, and the bodies have been found, that should be deleted.
So,
no
so
one
hang
was
on, hang on 1 second. So the reason why the mention is even in the Law Society documentation is to prepare lawyers for what?
Well, the well,
Is
this
it to
gets
make
into
make them
UNDRIP
make them
and
feel
UNDRIP and
bad?
but basically, all lawyers have been told through the BC government that you have to take this cultural sort of sensitivity or awareness training now. So it's a history of the residential schools, which we all know had problems, and also other things to do with Indigenous history in BC and treaty making and so on. And so it's basically to bring lawyers' awarenesses up, which there's no problem with that. That's fine, about this part of it. And awareness is always good. That helps everyone. But in these materials was still this mistake, and so here we're at remember, we're talking about the Law Society here, where
Right.
this is where truth should reside. That's the whole point of law, is to get to the truth of matters. So things went along. Jim Heller wasn't getting in responses, so he brought a resolution to the annual general meeting of the Law Society of British Columbia that year. I don't know what year it was, last year or the year before, and this became a big fight. And in the process of bringing this to the AGM, the Law Society basically did a link or a hyperlink in their materials to something that had been published by the Justice Council of Indian Chiefs. I forget the exact name of it, which basically accused Jim Heller of being what's called a denialist and a racist. And this was just, finally, Jim said, I've had enough. Now I'm being defamed by my own Law Society. And so he launched a lawsuit. And when this lawsuit was launched, it was, I saw it, and I got permission from the communications person in our party to post something on X about it, saying that there have been, and I said, there have been 0 bodies found, 0, and the Law Society needs to amend these materials. And that's when everything went crazy. And so I was asked to take it down. I said, it became, why would I take it down? It's true. And that's when everything went wrong. And then I had given an interview that was a hack job that they did on me about it, and they made it sound like I was mocking people. I was mocking cultural Marxism, the woke culture that says that there are many truths, like my truth, your truth. And really, in law, we are in the business of discovering one truth. And in this case here, like I understand different people can have different recollections and different stories and different eyewitnesses to things that have happened in a case. But when you're talking about specifics of burials, mass graves, and so on, there is only one truth. The truth is, are the bodies there or are the bodies not there? And as at this point, there are no bodies. So that is the truth right now. And
So
until
here's
there's been
but
an,
here's my, sorry to interrupt.
yep.
Uh, the fact, who benefits by not even trying to exhume a body to see if there are actually bodies there? Who benefits from that? Just keeping
From
that.
not from
Yeah,
not exhuming?
from
Well, I
not
would say
proving it.
well, what's happened is it's now what I believe is that this is the underpinning for so much that's happened in the aftermath of this announcement. The amount of money that's been pushed out by the federal government, we're talking about billions, and even the Kamloops band was sent $12.1 million to do digging there, and nothing was dug. There was no digging at all, and that money was earmarked for digging. And so my position as someone is, if you're taking taxpayers' money, it's earmarked for something, and you don't use it for that, then you should return the money. But the money got spent, but not on exhumation. That's a lot of money, and that's taxpayers' money. And so I believe that whenever you're receiving money from the public purse, you have to be open to questioning about where the money's been spent and how it's been spent.
Absolutely.
That's only fair. If you want to raise the money privately, no one will ask any questions. That's fine. If it's your own money, you spend it, you don't spend it, you do what you want. That's your business. But when you're receiving money from other taxpayers, you, John, if I were receiving it, you've got to expect questions about what you did with that public money. So this is, what has happened is I believe that this story has become so important to this whole, I've often referred to as the reconciliation industry, that they don't want to back down on this. But I think that's a big mistake. I think that there needs to be a reckoning and an admission that we jumped the gun here, mistakes were made, and Canadians are very forgiving, but they also need to forgive Canada for blaming them for doing some mass murder if it's not true.
Right.
It's not okay to accuse this country of a mass murder and a graveyard with little children. They say some of them are young as 3. And then the story gets worse. It says that they forced other children to go out in the middle of the night and bury these people. I mean, the stories are really awful.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
it's not
And
true,
the hypocrisy of the New York Times labeling us as genocidal when the U.S. government is currently involved in.
well, so we
Yeah.
we believe that until that well, my view is that there needs to be a reckoning, and it would be great if they could just come to terms with this. And also, I say to myself, well, shouldn't we be happy that there aren't the bodies there if they're not there? And by
Right.
the way, we should be happy and celebrating. It was a big mistake. It didn't happen. Yes, children died at the residential schools, but they've all been marked and enumerated, and there were cemeteries and marked graves. Some of the graves have withered it through the years because they were made of wood. They were crosses.
Right.
But the researchers who have done deep research into this have the name of every child, how they died, where they died, and no one has said that there were not bad things that happened there. I don't think there's a Canadian that would say that. This situation with this grave, though, has become a mess, really. And
Right.
so, anyway,
Yeah. I mean,
that's
I'm all for reconciliation with Indigenous folk. I actually never really thought a whole lot about it until I can't remember the year, like maybe 1991, while I was working in radio. I also worked at London Drugs in the computer department, so I could get all my new toys. And at one point, I got hired and flown up to Telegraph Creek in northern BC to install a network of computers and a printer for the band office. And the chief of the band was my host. And I stayed in the old Hudson's Bay Hotel. I mean, that was built in like 1402 or something. Seemed like it anyways. The stairs were so worn out. And I learned a lot about about the history of I think it's 3 bands that are on that reservation. How gold was discovered in the 40s or early 50s, and the government made all these promises to the tribes, and then they ended up moving all the tribes into Telegraph Creek, into that region, and put a road in, and stripped the gold out, and nobody benefited from it, hardly at all. No jobs or anything. And then then years later they discovered another gold deposit up there, and the government made all sorts of promises. And I believe, if my memory serves me, and it doesn't always at these days, but basically the band got a liquor store and a band office, and the government took $5 billion in revenue out of the gold mine or something like that. It was crazy, and I thought, wow, that's, we need to do something about that. And but I think leveraging this story in Kamloops to get changes, I can't buy that. I can't buy that. If they're not willing to get the evidence, and it's very simple, I got a shovel, I'll take it up there, and I'll do the digging myself. But yeah, without evidence. In fact, I was watching a clip, a reporter. Was that with you? No, let me think who that was with. The other day, I watched a clip with a CBC reporter, and when she was confronted with, well, what about the evidence? What about the evidence? She said, well, I believe them.
Oh, was this with Francis Widdowson?
Yes. I
Yeah.
watched that with Francis Widdowson.
Francis Widdowson is an amazing academic who lost her job over this, and has been treated very badly, and she has been doggedly trying to explain to people what this is all about. And I watched that interview as well, and the disrespect shown her and the behavior of the journalist was something else. But
Reprehensible.
Yes. And so our view is that that we need a BC that works for everyone, and not
Yes.
just. And we have a really big problem. And I get letters from Indigenous people who tell me none of this stuff is helping the average person on the reserve. And the problem is, year after year goes by, and we're not seeing improvement for the people living on reserve.
Right.
And so there's a big problem structure of all of this. And so the focus needs to be on, well, where are all these billions going? If some places still don't have proper running water, or high rates of suicide, and big problems on reserve, social problems, and that are so sad, and Canadians don't want this. So what actually happens is the money ends up going to the reconciliation industry, which is basically lawyers, accountants, developers, consultants, chiefs.
Yes.
Chiefs and council. And so it's staying up here, and it's not getting down to the people who need it. And when public money is being spent, people need deliverables, and they need to see there has to be improvement as the years go by, not worse and worse. So, it's a big problem. But anyway, I got expelled from the caucus, and without any notice to me, a press release was made. There was a caucus meeting that morning, and an obvious setup to yell at me and swear at me and berate me. It was all planned by the people who, were angry, and then I, at that meeting, I tried to explain about the Law Society situation, but it's clear nobody wanted to hear about that. or the people who had decided to come after me that day. And then um, I also said, I will happily leave the room right now, and you guys can have a vote if you want me to leave caucus. And then that was just overwrought. And then some other people stood up to talk, and one um, fellow stood up to defend me, and he got sworn at and called names. It was horrible. I was being sworn at, screamed at, yelled at. It was one of those things where you can barely feel your face anymore because you can't believe what's happening.
Right.
I just finally I was like, I can't sit here anymore. And I thought, just pick up your briefcase, Alice, and just quietly leave. And I did, and I left. And when I got outside, it was obvious that they had already told the media they were going to do this to me because there was a guy waiting outside. But I came out earlier than they expected, and they weren't ready for me. And he was like, "Hurry, there she is!" And I was like, "What is going on here?" And I went down to my office, and about a couple of hours later, press release was made. Brodie's expelled because she's a gross, horrible person, and she was mocking sex abuse victims, and she was denialist, and just terrible stuff. And I just I couldn't believe it. And but there you have it. That's what happened. And sometimes that's, I've learned one thing. Politics is a dirty, dirty business.
Oh, yes.
There are no punches pulled, and people say and do horrible things. Um, even if I didn't like someone, I wouldn't do that to them.
Yeah, they will just about do anything to protect their power, prestige, and
Yeah.
their
So
paychecks.
anyway, I continue on, and Tara left the party, and Jordan Keeley left the party at the same time. And, so here we are, and we've started this new party. And I believe that this whole situation over the reconciliation, so on, needs to be put to the people, because we're talking about 6% of the population approximately that's now claiming sovereignty over more than 100% of the landmass of BC.
Right.
And decision agreements are being made in secret and then being sprung on areas and regions of the province, and they're being caught off guard by this. And big moves are being made, and people don't really, they're not understanding the magnitude of what's happening here under this act called DRIPA, which is the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. And it is basically the BC government decided to take UNDRIP and embed it right down into our laws. And we're the only jurisdiction in the world that's done that. And so the enormity of what they've brought into the province is huge. And the BC Conservative Party had campaigned on the promise to repeal DRIPA, and now they're backing away from that. And we are saying DRIPA must be repealed. It's too much. Our province can't sustain it. We can't have 204 bands all asserting claims all over the province, and then have a government in Victoria. It's not manageable. It's leading to problems, and it's causing more hostility than I think there's ever been.
So really what should happen is the government should be disbanded and the natives should get together and put together a council of elders, and that should run the province. That
Well, sort
is
of.
that what I'm hearing?
That's what they're planning. We're going to be talking about the Legal Professions Act, and there is a Native Council that now sits atop the Law Society that governs, and that is, yeah. So and recently in the legislature, bills 14 and 15 that the NDP was introducing, the chiefs and the Grand Chief,
Right.
Stuart Phillip, didn't just say that he wasn't happy with the legislation. He was angry that they weren't consulted before it was even brought to the legislature. So now we're saying that the Union of BC Indian Chiefs gets to see legislation before it even gets presented to the elected representatives of British Columbia.
Right.
That's so. And the problem there, of course, is that the bands and council, or chiefs and council, have a fiduciary obligation only to their members, not to anyone else in BC, and that is their fiduciary duty. So they're unaccountable to anyone because they don't get elected by British Columbians. It's a really thorny mess, and it's possible that people didn't really predict. I think it was sort of the road to hell is paved with good intentions,
Right.
and now we've got a big problem here.
Well, okay, we're going to segue into the other
Okay.
problems we're facing. uh, sadly to say. Uh, yeah, it's not just the unelected people here that might be an issue. It's also with these new laws or new acts, the Health Professions and Occupations Act, the Legal Professions Act, and the Emergency and Disasters Management Act, all three that have been updated or brought in since 2022. We're literally, I mean, under the EDMA, I want to get into HPOA first, but I just want to mention right off the top, under the EDMA, I mean, our Charter of Rights have been eliminated, our freedom of speech is gone, and it just goes downhill from there. Here's the thing, though. I only learned about the HPOA 1 week before the election last fall, and I was incensed. I was like, I can't believe this, and so I did. I helped produce a number of interviews to try and educate us people about what was happening, but I wasn't aware of the LPA and the EDMA. That never came up in the conversation. I don't know how, but it just never did. But I was hyper focused in that week on the HPOA, and it wasn't until March that I was sent a link to Matthew Cockle, Dr. Matthew Cockle's presentation on Rumble. Totalitarianism.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've
yeah, on totalitarianism in BC, and I was like, wow, because he did a deep dive into the law, and you have to do a deep dive because first of all, like the HPOA second largest bill, like 200 and almost 270 pages of political speak, second largest in the province, and even lawyers like Paul Jaffe, they spent hours and days, weeks going through these bills, and they're like, well, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? And there was very little legislative debate about the HPOA back in 2022, and also just so people understand, like BC was the last region in the world to eliminate the mandates. And during the mandates, over 6,000 health professionals in British Columbia were either quit or fired because of their personal beliefs or their scientific beliefs or their not be able to get access to any of the research that proved any of this stuff worked, was safe, and what the side
By
effects
the way,
are.
on John, on that point, they keep saying the number in the ledge. They'll refer to 2,000 or 2,500 who lost their jobs. It's much closer to 7,000, is my understanding. It's not 2,000.
Yeah, no, I said over 6,000.
Yeah, no, I know you did, but
Yeah.
in the ledge, they'll refer to they only
Oh,
lost
I see.
2,000 or something, and the number is much higher. It's my understanding.
It's over
It's
7,000.
much closer to the number you're talking about. Yes.
Right, right. Well, the thing is, when the mandates were ceased, all of these people that had lost their jobs were thinking, well, great, now I can get my job back and resume my life, only to find out a couple of days after they ceased the mandates, they announced the HPOA, Bill 36. And when they started looking into the Bill 36, it was much, much, much worse than what had happened to them during the mandates. And there's no going back. So we're gonna talk about that. But what really burns me right now, what just burns me, is this. I don't like to swear. This damn government. They're marketing in Washington State, Oregon, and California, three very blue states, very leftist, idealist, very controllable health professionals, and they're advertising jobs to come to BC. And if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse, come to BC, and we'll fast track you. You'll have a job basically the next day. So they certainly fast track. They're fast tracking at the expense of multi-million-dollar advertising campaign to replace our doctors and nurses. And think about this, people. A nurse starting out in BC goes through a 4-year diploma program to get into nursing, and then her internship and so on. In the U.S., it's a 2-year certificate. So right out of the gate, our nurses are so well trained, and then you've got these nurses with years and decades of experience sitting on the sidelines, not being asked to come back and work in the system. Doctors, same thing. Doctors are, and health professionals, and this is the other thing about the HPOA. When I talk about this, people say, "Well, my doctor." I say, "Well, it's not just your doctor. This impacts dentists, massage therapists, naturopathic doctors, chiropractors, anybody who requires a license to practice any kind of health in BC is under the auspices of the HPOA. And like even on, and I see when I do see some published work about or published articles or whatever on it that try to explain about it, they talk about fines up to $200,000 and up to 2 years in jail for doctors who speak out against anything in the HPOA because they are legally no longer allowed to speak out against anything. They're no longer legally allowed to give their patients informed consent. There is no bodily autonomy. Oh, and I should bring this up. Just I don't want to cover you up.
Remember, just on that little point there, it should be that you can go and get several opinions from doctors. Like,
yes,
it's commonly done. Like, even when you're hiring a lawyer, you usually do a bit of a meet and greet with a couple of different lawyers for the task. Say you're doing an incorporation or something. You go and you meet this lawyer. Do I get along with him? Do I jive?
Right.
And you need to do like a consult, and then you sort of go, okay, I think this guy or this, I like this one the best. And with doctors, say you go to the first doctor and he says, well, this is my view of this. You're getting blood clots because of this. The next then you say, okay, you get a second and third, maybe a third opinion if you've got some health problem. And that way you can get a variety of things, and you can find a doctor who maybe you feel is looking more closely at your specific situation. And I know there was so much conflict around the vaccine mandates and everything, but there were people who physically could not take them, who, like, it was very unfair to these people to not be allowed to have medical advice based on their specific medical situation.
Right.
And so the whole issue of a doctor not being allowed to give a different opinion, say you go to doctor 1, doctor 2, doctor 3, going forward now, all of these doctors, it's a risk that they're all going to be unable to say anything about anything now. And that's, anyway, we'll get into what's happened here, but
right. So
where do you want to take this now? Like, because one of the biggest problems is the new structure of the health professions college and so on. So
yes. Yeah, let me bring up our patient alert. So this is a patient alert that was created by health professionals of British Columbia, HPOBC, and that's hpobc.com. So the link to hpobc.com will be down there. This interview will be on that website as soon as it's ready to go. But this is a look at the Health Professions and Occupations Act patient summary. These are the lowlights of the act. Make sure I got any control over this document here. I should have control over this document. I can't. Oh, hang on. Position there. Maybe I could scroll there. No, I can't scroll this. Something's going on here. Okay, so we'll look at these top parts here. So here are some of the points. So patients are less safe because of loss of health care. Patients are suffering and dying because medical doctors and healthcare professionals are burned out. And many of them are just leaving their professions or leaving the province entirely. My brother, case in point, my brother finally got a family doctor a few months ago. It took him 18 months. So I just want to say, so when you mention, Dallas, when you mention, well, we should be able to get a second opinion, it took my brother 18 months to find a doctor that would give him the first opinion.
First opinion. I know. I mean, that's just dreamland, right? I mean, now it's really hard because, particularly when you have a child that needs to get to a specialist, it's almost, you dread even jumping into the process because it's so burdensome and disappointing and hard to get through. It's really hard. I know. Absolutely.
Let me carry on here. Okay, loss of morale. Patients have lost confidence in healthcare in BC. Yeah, believe it or not, we have. Yes. I was actually in the hospital emergency room a few weeks ago because I don't have a family doctor, and I'm glad that it was delayed. So yeah, I had this weird. I'm a cyclist. I love going out. Oh, I forgot to ask you. Total aside. But I'm ADD. I have an ADHD brain, so I have to ask this question. Are you related? Are you related to Paul Brodie?
No.
I'm sure there's more than one Brodie family.
I'm not related to Malcolm Brodie either, but we're all probably from the same Brodie clan in Scotland.
Alas.
Yeah.
I was born in Glasgow, so.
Really? Wow.
I'm a card-carrying Scotsman.
Okay.
Or as I like to say, deported to Canada at the tender age of 8 months old.
There you go.
Okay. Oh yeah, I was going to
So,
say Paul Brodie because he's a famous bicycle designer here. I actually
oh, the
built my
Brodie bicycles. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I built my first Brodie Bandit e-bike about 4 years ago. When COVID hit, I'm like, okay, I needed something to do, so I built an e-bike. And
Good for you.
here we go. Okay, so loss of informed consent. This is important. Practitioners are practicing in fear of government reach because if a doctor gives you information that does not comply with the new um, policies and rules and regulations set down by political appointees. As Dallas mentioned, the boards are now, all the doctors have been fired, all the health professionals have been fired off their respective boards. They're gone. These were elected health professionals by their own members who were overseeing their profession. They've all been replaced by political appointees. Keep that in mind. So a political appointee of
Big
any
problems there.
big problem. They're going
Yeah,
to
we're
tell
going to come back
doctors,
to that. That's
yeah, we're
probably
going to
one
come,
of the biggest things
yeah,
I want to talk about.
we're going to come back to that. Politicians create practice standards instead of highly trained medical professionals. Loss of privacy. I love this. Your personal health records are no longer private. Now, here's the thing I want to talk about here. So, Dallas, picture this. Okay, let's take me as an example. Let's say I go through this really horrible divorce. It's a breakup. It's bad. It doesn't work. And I get PTSD, and I'm thinking, oh, man, my friends, they keep telling me, man, go get help to deal with this. When you're not eating, you're not sleeping. So I go for therapy. So I find a psychologist. I like him or her, and I start my therapy. And I work through everything, and boy, 8 months later, I'm a different person. I'm like I was before I got married, and everything's good. And I'm looking around, and I think, look at what the hell is going on in BC with this HPOA. Damn it, I'm running for office. I'm going to do something about this. So you start running for office, and you got maybe a 3% approval rating at first, and then you start building momentum because you're talking about transparency and all these great things like OneBC, and you're all of a sudden like it's getting closer and closer, and the polls are showing that you actually have a lead over the incumbent, and you could win the riding. And then one of the political appointees says, I heard a story. I heard that John. He had to go see a psychologist. He was having real
There you go.
difficulties with his marriage.
There you go.
Could we get an anonymous? Could we find who that psychologist is? Get an anonymous complaint.
Yep.
Phone
No,
rings.
this is
Oh, and they can walk into that psychologist's office and demand patient records with no warrant, no court order, not just
correct.
your doctor.
Correct.
That's the
It's and it's like I want to point out like it's the same problem. Like they say it's to do this, but it ends up being abused and misused. The legislation, they say, oh, it was just meant to do this so that we could keep people safe. That's always what they say. But then it's going to be misused, just like the Transparency Act in BC is being misused now. If
right,
you own private property and you don't want people knowing everything you own, because they could go around and vandalize every building you own if they hate your guts. Or
right,
it used to be private property. Now they can look up, even if it's held in companies. They said this was to identify scary foreign buyers who own things here, but it's being used against people in BC now to find out what each individual person owns, and so there's no privacy. And
right,
so there's the misuse of this, and that's like a small example. So now imagine if that's applied to your personal health records, or what if you have a child who's going through depression or whatever is going on, and they can find out everything about you now, and use it against you, get you fired. See how the control, and everybody starts just being quiet because they're like, I better keep my head down, otherwise they're going to find out that I had depression or
right,
my child was suicidal last year,
right,
or that my whatever, like you were saying, say you went through something. They look it up and but that's a real risk now, and it doesn't require a warrant. And, a warrant, that protects people from having invasions of their privacy, because you have to have reasonable and probable grounds and
right,
tell a judge why you should have the right to go into someone's very private medical records. Like
right.
what could possibly go wrong here? You know,
Well, yes.
very
So
big problem.
it's we've only touched on a couple of items.
I know.
And it's
I know,
absolutely insane. There's
I know,
270 odd pages of this.
I know. And
Eh,
apparently only 9% of it was read through before it was approved. So it was
right.
just pushed through. And this is really scary. And why would they do that? And this combined with the Legal Professions Act, well, I don't know, I don't want to tell you where to go with this interview, but the next thing is that the combination of all the colleges and
Right.
putting political appointees onto the health colleges instead of having elected experts. Uh, they're doing the same thing at the Law Society. And
Right. Well,
I mean,
let's kind of let's set that up. All right. So, uh, because here's what bothered me when I learned about the HPOA was I'm like, how can they do this? Like, it's not possible. Like this, it didn't make any sense to me. And again, as I mentioned earlier off the top, until I saw Matthew Cockle's presentation, and then I learned about the Legal Professions Act and how
mm,
they restructured that, and they literally made it illegal for lawyers to represent a patient in a case against the crown or a political appointee or a doctor. It's like in the U.S. where they back in 1986, in order to get the pharmaceutical company said, well, we're not going to make any more vaccines unless you protect us. You got to make
mm,
us. You got to get rid of the liability. If there's no liability, we'll make vaccines. And so the government said, okay, well, we can't just take away, liability. What if you screw something up? Or, well, I'll tell you what, here's what we did. Of course, I'm paraphrasing in my own brain here. This is not exactly what happened. Uh, so basically what happened was, okay, so here's the deal. We're going to make you guys, we're going to do safety studies on these vaccines every 2 years. So we'll do the safety studies on the vaccines. We'll We'll make you immune to lawsuits and liability. So any doctor, pharmaceutical company, you will be no problem. You guys are safe, and we'll do the safety studies every 2 years. And then, and so that was everybody agreed. Say, oh, this is great. And so then, of course, vaccines went from like a handful to what 76 on a kid now today when they're
it's a
born.
lot for kids now. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
it's insane. But anyway, so RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr. there, he with the Children's Health Defense Fund, it took I think 2 years. They filed a lawsuit against with the government agency that's responsible. It's not Health and Human Services. No, it's anyways. They filed a lawsuit seeking these studies. They wanted these safety studies that they started doing back in 1986, and it took 2 years. Big battle, and then finally the government admitted no studies had ever been done.
Oh, so no
So
safety study done.
none,
Okay.
zero, none had been
Well,
done, and they admitted that in court. There were no studies, and so since 1986, people have been and it's just you look at all these examples. It's like the situation in Kamloops. They just say it enough times, it just becomes a fact, a baseless
well,
fact, right?
and it's really the climb down is big when you know it's gone on. Yeah. So I don't know. I believe that when you've made a mistake and I wouldn't tell a lie, but when people need to just own it, and Canadian people would forgive it. They know mistakes get made, and people just need to say there was a mistake made here, and
Yeah.
we need to talk about it. But let's come back to the Health Professions Act and how we see what's happened with the college and so on.
Yes.
Y- Um, I don't know what you think about this, but first of all, they've taken a bunch of different colleges. I think there were 15, and they've reduced them down to
6.
uh, 6. And they're going to, instead of having practicing, say, chiropractors on the chiropractor college, they're going to have people who don't know anything about chiropractic, and they're going to be political appointees. And from what I've seen in government so far is once you're a political appointee, you are controlled. You are, and that this word captured is an important one to know. This is how they're capturing. They capture the regulatory body this way by putting political appointees in there. They don't know anything about chiropractic.
No.
And how can they possibly, it would be like me being on a vascular surgeon panel. I'd be, what am I doing there? I have no idea. there are even so, and this is the problem. Like you need specialists on these boards, and it's been working all these years. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what the mischief is they were trying to cure with all of these changes, because I didn't hear a huge uproar about people saying they didn't like the colleges or that things weren't happening. Did you? I've
The
never heard
only,
of it.
yeah, no, the only issue was back in 2017, 18, when the NDP government hired Harry Caton to do
Yes.
that
Okay.
report on the dental college.
Right. I think there was a big problem there on something that happened. But, you know, in medicine, mistakes do happen. In law, mistakes happen. In real estate, you know, there are always going to be bad apples in any
Right,
profession. It doesn't matter whether it's an accountant, a lawyer, a real estate agent, every profession, even there can be a bad fireman, there can be a bad police officer. This is life, and so there things do happen. But I didn't hear people were complaining about the lack of doctors, but I didn't hear them saying we want the whole Health Professions Act regulated in a different way. And I don't know how the government thinks it can manage this when things aren't even being managed very well in Victoria right now, for goodness
right.
sake. Why do
Well,
you want to take on governing the doctors when you can't even manage Victoria? Look at the state of this province.
right,
Why do you want another file that you're going to mess up?
right.
Like,
Well, I,
go.
I, I got, I had a great, I've had many conversations, since I got involved in this, and I had a really good conversation with a very well-known, highly placed medical professional, a
Hmm.
surgeon, and he told me, he said, he said, all it would take for the HPOA to be killed is every anesthesiologist, I sure I would have picked a word I can't even pronounce.
Anesthesiologist.
Anesthesiologist, thank you very much. I don't know why I do that to myself.
That's okay.
And if all the anesthesiologists in the province just said, "That's it, we're done, we quit, we're not working,"
Yep.
done.
All it
That would
takes,
do it.
if
If the
I,
doctors, all it would take is enough doctors in VGH in Kelowna to say, "Okay, no, you know what, we're done. Thank you very
we're done.
much, we're done. It's all yours. We're done." All it would take is a
Correct.
walkout, and the HPOA would be dead overnight.
I've often said all it takes is people to stand up and say no, and particularly, you know, I get the men to all stand up and say we're done, and it would be done in 12 hours
Yeah.
and over. And he's right, and I don't know why this
Well,
can't happen.
he told me why he
Everybody's
said, but
afraid.
he told me why.
Well, why?
He said because they all got big raises.
Oh,
They all got big juicy raises. The
when?
doctors. I don't know the day, but yeah,
Okay.
they all got big raises, and uh, and he said, and the thing is, he said in the system itself, like for example, he said, uh, the health professionals that work in hospitals, in our major hospitals, they're under, they have to have their what's it called now, something renewed every year. They're supposed to be using, government email. They never use it. They have all these rules and regulations that they're supposed to follow in order to comply with their position in the hospital. He said, and they don't. Like he said, like 80 to 90% of them don't even bother. They don't file this. They don't do that. They just go in. They do their thing. He said, so they're just keeping their heads down. He said they're all just keeping their heads down. But
Well, in Victoria, like politicians do the same thing. They keep their heads down and to avoid getting, you know, your head cut off. And like, you know, I know how it feels. It's not easy to stick your neck out, and it's not fun. I'll tell you,
right.
it's really not fun.
Well,
It affects your life. It affects a lot of things. But you know, we have to find our big boy pants. We
yes, we
have to
do.
step up, and we need to, you know, show some courage and bravery and say, okay, I'll take some hits, but I got to stand up and start speaking about what's going on here. So,
Well, here's the thing. Like the cycle has started now because as of today,
mm,
July 31st, the first health board and uh, is basically they've got until midnight tonight to agree to the new rules and regulations. That is the chiropractors.
really?
The chiropractors today is the end. Yeah, today the HPOA is fully in effect for these guys. They cannot renew their licenses unless they comply with everything in the rules and regulations. And here's the thing:
I
get this,
didn't know that.
people. The political appointees in charge of the chiropractors and the other group, because I can't remember who else is involved in that group, what
Yeah.
other verticals,
What other
but
one they rolled into it? Yeah.
exactly. But he said that they haven't even given us the policies. Like they haven't given us like the new, chiropractor policy handbook or anything. So all they've basically said is, so far, all they've said is that they have to be up to date on their vaccines, especially the measles. The chiropractors have to be fully vaccinated, and every member of their staff has to be fully vaccinated. And that's basically all they've come out with so far. I've been trying to reach him for the last 3 days because we had our conversation coming. I wanted to find out what's going on, but I know he's terrified. Like
So
he's
tonight's the
terrified.
night.
Tonight's the night. So we'll find out
Wow.
over the next few days if chiropractors are being shut down, if they're leaving the province or whatever, if they're going to go get jobs at McDonald's. Um, yeah, the
Wow,
first
John.
big test is tonight. So
Well, I don't think the problem is most British Columbians don't even know what's in the HPOA. It does take you some time to sit down and look at it, and it's hard to understand it's like a lot of things. You don't realize how bad something is until you're up against it and
well,
you're dealing with it.
here's when
It's
they are
like,
going to find out. But here's when they are going to find out. I call like, for lack of a better analogy, I call it the apocalypse, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. So we've already got three. The first three are already here: HPOA, LPA, EDMA. They're the first three. It's the fourth one that's going to arrive, and that's when the apocalypse is going to hit. And the fourth one, I'm not religious, by the way. I'm
okay.
spiritual. I believe in Mother Nature and the goodness of the universe, but I'm just using this as an analogy. Um, Under the EDMA, if there's an emergency or a pandemic declared by somebody in Mesopotamia, and the political appointee in BC on that particular day goes, yeah, yeah, okay, we got a pandemic here. We're not, it's in Mesopotamia. We got to follow their rules and regulations, or follow the WEF or follow the WHO, who did a
Mm.
wonderful job. I don't know if you can sense my sarcasm. Who did a wonderful job during COVID. Um, my God, the lockdowns destroyed economies, destroyed lives. The children have been put back so far. And we
And
know all this stuff. We know it. We've seen the results. We've seen the science. We've listened to the Pfizer executive at that panel in the EU say, well, no, we never tested it for safety or for
I know.
transmission. Like, what, are we crazy? That's cost money. Um, okay, she didn't say that part. I made that part up. But they did admit they never tested the damn thing. And then all of the stuff that's happened since then. And so we are going to, as a province, under this law, under the EDMA, they can legally just say tomorrow, they can find out this afternoon and they can say, okay, so we're starting tomorrow morning,
Yes.
lockdowns. If you don't,
Yep.
digital vaccine passports will be issued on next Tuesday. You
And
don't
not
have
just
your,
that, also it allows them to just walk on your property and take your chickens or whatever. They can do
oh,
anything.
yeah, yeah,
It's everything. It's just like this going to be like we just walk in and take stuff,
yeah.
and it, it's
It's
actually
going to
hard
be,
to believe.
it's going to be the pandemic on steroids.
Yeah.
It's my
And
belief.
I asked myself, why do you want this kind of power over people? Why don't you trust people in a huge emergency? Most communities will help each other and work together and work on things. And that's the way it should be,
Hmm.
is the government shouldn't be coming down on us like this big monster gorilla. We should have, prepare communities, get people ready to take care of their neighbors in the event of, they'll be way better at doing it than any government group. So, but this is when, they say inside every socialist is an authoritarian screaming to get out.
Right.
And this is about wanting control. And everything, it's just step by step. If you watch everything the NDP government does under David Eby, step by step, they take bite, bite, bite. They're pulling in, gathering in,
Right.
pulling in, pulling in. It's happened with the municipal acts, no more public hearings. We're going to tell you from Victoria what to do in a little street up in Penticton. We're going to tell you that that's the best housing plan for there, despite what the neighbors, they know the area very well. We're going to start, everything is being centralized and pulled in, and this is what I think is extremely dangerous, because once everybody's just under control, really we've lost our ability to manage our lives on our own, and well, it's totalitarianism. And
Right.
it's
Well,
shocking.
here's the thing,
But
though.
it's,
But here's the thing. You know, there's always hope. There's always hope if a politician comes along that actually has a chance, as an opportunity to get into a position of power to do something about that. And I want to, and I want to impress upon this point, because I actually have evidence. I actually have evidence of a politician that has absolutely, in fact, it was just a week prior to the election at a town hall in Nanaimo, and he said, if we're elected, boy, we're repealing that HPOA like day one. Okay, so let's just take a look at this for a little historical, little, yeah, historical is right. So
a
this
little
was
walk down memory lane.
a little walk. Thank you. Walk down memory lane. This is
Okay, let's go.
this is John Rudstad. He's at a town hall in Nanaimo, and it's a little over a week before the election, last October.
Okay, let's hear it.
He was asked by a local to Nanaimo, a health professional, what he was going to do about the HPOA should he be elected. So, you ready for this? Hopefully I hit the right button here.
Yeah, so it's going to be repealed. The only thing we need to keep is we need to keep the section around the colleges for the short term. We need to work with the health professions around rebuilding what those colleges needs to look like. Then we'll introduce that new piece of legislation on the colleges and get rid of the last component of Bill 36. But the rest of it will go as soon as we can.
Excellent. We appreciate that. Good stuff. How about respecting bodily autonomy for the workplace?
No question. Look, we have to be able to have choice in how things are being done, and we need to be able to respect that. That's why we're going to drop all these silly mandates and restrictions and offer the jobs back to healthcare workers in BC.
Awesome. Okay, thanks for representing our values.
Yeah, those are core that I've talked about everywhere I go. So
Excellent.
Everywhere he goes. Everywhere he goes. So I thought, okay, I mean, I'm going to take the man at his word, and I said we were going to talk about this, and I wanted to be able to show you that there are politicians that care. So I went on to Grok this morning. I have a Grok account, and I did some research. So I'm going to bring up this prompt. This is very interesting. This is so interesting here. Not the easiest to read here, but I'll just let's see if I can make this. Can I make this any bigger? I think I can zoom in on this. I have the. There we go. Look at that. It's almost like I knew what I was doing. Okay, so here's the prompt I wrote. Can you search X and elsewhere to see if you can find any information on BC Conservative leader John Rudstad where, since the BC election, last November, I meant to say October, where he has spoke out publicly about the HPOA, LPA, or EDMA? So look at the search here. And this is the deep search. 26 minutes and 17 seconds. Grok accessed 114 sources that it found that might have some relevance. This is just showing here what it's doing. Refine the search focus, exploring alternative sources, searching legislative records, reviewing additional sources completed. So let's go down here. Key points. Okay, research suggests John Rudstad has not spoken publicly about the HPOA, LPA, or EDMA since the BC election in October 2024. The evidence leans toward a lack of recent statements, with no mentions found in news articles, social media, or legislative records after October 19, 2024. It seems likely that his focus has been on other issues such as healthcare access and party leadership, replacing MLAs he doesn't like, rather than I threw that in, specific acts. Now let's go down here. Search findings. Extensive research, including news articles, social media posts, and legislative records, did not uncover any public statements by John Rudstad on these specific acts after October 19th, 2024. While he has been active on social media and in the media, discussing topics like healthcare access and party leadership, there are no mentions of the acts in the available records. So conclusion. This is Grok's conclusion. Based on the available information, it appears John Rudstad has not publicly addressed the HPOA, LPA, or EDMA since the election, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's enough of that. Like, so prior to the election, he was all over it. Get me elected. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to protect your, we're going to repeal this. Gets elected. Not a word.
I know. And that was a main plank of the Conservative Party of BC platform back when we were all campaigning. And it
Didn't
was a
he hand
major-
deliver the cards? Like,
Yes. You mean which cards?
remember the patient cards, or the people were BC Rising had a campaign with the cards that you could sign or send to your MLA. Oh shoot, what was it called? I should have brought that up. I never thought to have that ready. There was some public outcry, and so
There was.
yeah,
And
not
I think-
much, but some.
Yeah, but that was part of the campaign promises, and this is what I noticed too, is that the party went limp on a lot of the promises they made, and this is still, it's not in the ledge this season, but it's still a major problem, that act. And, now it's starting to come into force. I'm going to be watching this thing with the chiropractors now. It's major.
It
So
is.
John did promise that, and I'm sure he meant it at the time, but I don't know what's happened since I can't say, except for you get to Victoria and things change.
Yeah,
And,
because he really
I-
did seem to want to do it, and
Yep,
I mean, we were like, when I saw that, I got so excited. I was just
I
like,
know.
and everybody was holding their breath, the day of the election, and the fact that they got 44. I mean, think about it. And I wanted to point this out to you too. So,
Right.
the year before, the Conservative Party only had a 3% approval rating.
I know.
A year later, they won 44 seats.
I know.
Now, I'm not claiming it's because of the reel that I created and that we put out on Instagram. I'm not taking credit for it. But the good news is, I like your political party. I like your stance. And if they did it on 3%, if you could just build your support. The good thing about Canada, we're not afraid to vote third party.
Nope. And we shouldn't be afraid of that. Right now, our party, they're like, well, what if you split the vote? I'm like, look, there's no election right now. Right now, our party is the only party bringing up the burning issues, that everybody wants to talk about. And everybody's talking about it, but Tara and I are bringing these issues up, and we'll continue to do that. If there's an election, you deal with that other issue at the time. But we are in it to take this province forward. We have a great platform. And I really believe in everything we're doing, and much of what we're saying we're doing is what the Conservative Party said it would do. So we are, and we're going to go further though, and we really believe that, BC's in real trouble, John, and this isn't a left or right issue anymore.
No.
This is up or down. It's up or down, because right now there's no money. We've got a deficit of $14 billion. That's incredible.
But then that drives me crazy, because if we work with Alberta and Saskatchewan and we built these corridors to move our resources and access to resources, that we have so many resources in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan.
We are such a rich province, and we could be so successful. I mean, we're larger than Washington, Oregon, and California put together.
Right.
And it's just, you go around this province, and we've only got 5.4 million people in the province even. And we have these vast swaths of land, but we are really stuck right now. Investment is not coming because there's an uncertain investment environment in BC.
Right.
Due to all these land claims. It's a really damaging thing. And let's not forget to mention the massive U.S.-funded environmental groups that have come
Yes.
up here and strangled us to death. The Tides Foundation has been involved up here big time to basically landlock Alberta. And it's such an obvious plan. They don't want the oil sands to be able to be used, and so we could.
Well,
be
it's not
so much prosperity.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's, if they're landlocked, the only pipeline that can leave the province is south to the
That's a good
U.S.
point. Yes,
That,
right.
I mean, that protects their cheap oil and gas
That's
by
a good
landlocking
point.
them.
but so like we've got some, but nobody's talking about those big issues that the consultations that are taking place now are grinding. What is the number like in Chile to get a mine started? I believe I was talking to a friend who's in the business. It's about two years from putting in your permit to getting into the ground. Here it's on average between 12 and 15.
Yes.
So how can anybody? And then sometimes they get to the end of the process and find out, whoopsie daisy, we've decided we don't want it after all.
Or in the
Or
case of the pipeline, I was watching, getting some background information the other day on the pipeline issue with Alberta, and they could have. I can't remember how many native bands were between Alberta and the water, but many, many. All it takes is one to say, "Nah, we don't want it," and
So you could have
it
10
can't
on
go
side
through.
and one say no,
Yeah,
and you've got a big problem. And
yeah.
so but we could be so prosperous. We should have abundant energy. We should not be having all these problems and water restrictions for 5.4 million people in a place that rains 11 months. What is going on here?
Right.
So but there's a desire to create an atmosphere of scarcity and fear. And I really think that that's got to go because British Columbians are forgetting how much we need the northern BC. We need them. They need the jobs. And we can't exist on Starbucks in Vancouver. It's not an industry. We have to develop our resources and of course be careful of the environment, but we
Well,
have
of
to do
course,
something.
but we can do that. It's already
have
been this demonstrated and established that Canada has some of the cleanest energy, cleanest products, cleanest foods. What the
Yes,
farmers are doing, tracking from farm to table, which is
yes,
why the EU we're getting these deals for our food supply, our foodstuffs from the EU, and Trump and company are really pissed right now because nobody will take their food, but it's not, they can't even call most of their food. So, I mean,
well we have such opportunity here and it's just not being exploited and it's not being developed and we need to create and then we just imagine if we could cut the taxes in half here. Imagine. Uh,
in
and
half,
Gordon,
in half, Canada is so rich.
I know.
We don't even have to have taxes. And here's the other thing about immigration. I want to point this out. If we open up our resources, if we
Yes,
became one of the richest countries in the world, which we could in a decade,
easy.
we could be one of the richest countries we could be like Saudi Arabia, no taxes, the world's best healthcare, the world's
Yes, we could.
best education.
Yes.
I mean, and we can do it in an environmentally conscious way. We could become stewards. We could become the shining example of
Yes.
how to do resource extraction and
Yeah.
build wealth and build community and build health and build.
Yes.
We could do
And
that.
make and bring prosperity for everybody,
Prosperity.
not just this small elite that
Yeah.
is getting really rich here in BC right now. We need to give young people hope because they're leaving, John.
Well,
We have 2 out of 3 young people under 30 leaving.
it's not.
And
It's going to get. It's going to get worse because just look at you're running out of time. There's so much more to talk about, but I just want to briefly bring up the immigration policies at the federal level with these job visas.
yeah,
That's
it's
just completely destroying the job market for our youth.
it
All
is
these,
like I have 17-year-old twin daughters, and we come up to the Sunshine Coast in the summer, and up here they were able to find jobs, but in the city, all their friends struggle to even get jobs at a Subway or a restaurant.
right?
They can't get. And when I was growing up and first working in the 70s and so on, everybody got jobs really quickly at, Smitty's or wherever you got a job at the grocery store,
You could
and
get a
and
job any day of the week. You could get a job.
and we need our kids working because it gives them a sense of satisfaction. I know when my kids work, they're the happiest people,
Yeah.
and they meet new friends, they have fun.
Life skills, interacting,
I know
networking.
that sometimes when you're going through the hardest time in your life, just having a job keeps you sane.
Yeah.
It's one thing that people have lost that notion. Like, don't go just sit on the couch. Get up and get a job. You'll feel better. I promise. Just do something.
Right. Do
You know,
something.
you know. And so we can do that again. But we need our young people to have hope again. whether
Well,
they're Indigenous, all
it's
of the kids, not
but it's
just
going to
in,
get worse. But it's going to get worse. I mean, right now the a bit an issue we can deal with, something that we could resolve, is
yes, we could.
limiting these job visas, like these jobs. I mean, I
Yes,
can see you need to bring a guy in that's got triple PhDs, advanced AI programming, or battery design
sure.
engineer, or something. But to bring in people that replace all the jobs for our youth, all these entry level jobs, no, absolutely not. We don't need
Yeah.
people with no education to come to Canada to take away the jobs from our kids. Number one.
Yes.
Number two, AI is going to kill the job market in Canada within
Yeah.
5 years. So we talk about this. Boy, you're getting me going on this one now. The income, everybody's the
Oh, the
standard
universal basic income.
universal basic income. Yeah. So now there's going to have to be a universal basic income. I mean, it's going to be either that, or if you think there's a homeless problem now. And by the way, Chilliwack, where I'm living and working from, we have the highest crime rate in Canada.
That's unbelievable. I didn't.
We
know
have the
that.
highest crime rate in Canada. Guess where one of the largest RCMP training facilities is?
Chilliwack.
Just down the road. I literally lived during COVID on the river about 3 miles, or 3 kilometers, sorry, from the RCMP training facility. The amount of this is after 10 years in Mexico, right? So I'm in Mexico City, in Mexico for 10 years. I remember, I don't know, it was 2014 or something. I was coming out of a subway. It was the largest multi-transport hub in Mexico City. Subways, buses, and all that kind of stuff. It's a big transportation hub. And we got mugged. Myself and my buddy, we got mugged. But no hurt. They didn't have any weapons or knives or anything. And when I realized they had no weapons, I'm like, let's take them down. So we caught them. We chased them. It was hilarious. It was like the Keystone Cops jumping over taxis, running through buses. It was like right out of Hollywood. And then I noticed
Youthful exuberance.
yeah, then I noticed one guy's limping. He starts limping. I'm like, get. I don't want to say it. I'll get canceled if
Get
I
in
say the
trouble.
word I used. Get the guy that can't walk properly. Get the and so we corner him. We just corner him. Like, we just stand there, and I'm yelling, "Policia, policia!" And my friend's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Calling the police." He goes, "It's policia." They're not going to know yet. So the police came, grabbed this guy, took him, and my friend and I went to the meeting. We were going to a business meeting, and so he goes, "Well, I got to deal with it. I'll deal with this. Your Spanish is bloody horrible. I'll deal with this, and you go to the meeting." So that was it. That was my experience of crime in Mexico in 10 years. I'm out on the river during COVID, living in my little RV, and 1 week there was a guy was shot about 2 blocks to my right, and then the following week 2 people were killed a block away on my left. And the amount of crime in the machine shop where I ended up above with my little YouTube studio, Kevin said he probably lost well over $30,000 worth of stuff in the previous year to the homeless camps.
Well,
And,
we've lost the deterrence. We've created a permissive society where the only people really getting in trouble for anything are the people who are law abiding. So I often say the law has become only applicable to the law abiding people. And the rest of the people who just want to openly use, we've got open air drug use, as everybody knows. We've got
Yes.
open air defecation and urination. This is in broad daylight often. We've got behaviors that are completely out of control. And it continues to go. But that also has become an industry. You see, there are
Yes,
lots
it
of
has.
jobs that have been created around this. And, kids are dying, people are dying, and people are using drugs. Going downtown, I don't like my kids going downtown anymore, really. They've got to keep their wits about them. It's not the same. And I've had major business people come to me and say, Dallas, this could be fixed they could have a big turnaround done in 6 months. of what's going on in the province, business-wise, and just crime-wise. It wouldn't take much, but the politicians are not showing the leadership they need to show on this, and I'm not sure what they're afraid of, because people want the streets cleaned up.
Yeah.
They need answers. We're spending money and nothing changes. So, and so this is what I'm doing here. And I really believe, I mean, imagine if we could form government and immediately strike a blue ribbon panel of truly great business leaders in this province and say, you got 2 weeks, come back with some answers, show us the way, these executive minds who can actually say, this is what we're going to, we
Yes.
could really make a difference. And I get really excited when I think about what we could do if we had the opportunity to really lead. But we really do have a socialist bordering on communist group of people in power, radical thinking, and they're not looking for pragmatic answers. It's all about the ideology, and that's dangerous. Ideology can't govern things. You need pragmatic answers to the problems.
Right.
So ideology is not a good thing in government. And also, we have too much government all around us now. We need to get out of people's lives again. Let them function. Give people back their money. Let them spend it themselves. They can spend it better than we can. Apparently, when Gordon Campbell gave that massive, I think it was like a 50% tax cut back in the early 2000s, the bump to the economy was immediate.
Right.
Immediate. And it really did work. And I just think, wouldn't it be terrific if we could have that kind of bump again and just see what could happen if we got some real leadership going here. Anyway, I have
Okay.
optimism, but right now we have some big problems, and I want to, thank you for bringing these things to attention. We didn't really even get onto the Law Society, but
No,
for the-
because you know what? We're doing that next. We're going to have another talk if you don't mind.
Okay, because
Okay.
that's really important, because the lawyers are really, they're taking the government to court. There are like 20 different organizations that are suing the BC government over the Legal Professions Act. That's how serious they're taking it.
Well, that's what they've already done that.
They've done it, but
But
they
no,
did it-
I realize that. But I just wanted to point out for the viewers, for our listeners, they actually attempted to do that. They ended up in court, and the judge, she literally said, "Well, you know what? I have to side with the government here. They're doing this in the interest of public safety." So she dismissed their application and said, "But," she said, I will leave it open for you to return to this," or whatever the legal language is, after
what
it's been
they asked-
enacted. After it's been
what they-
enacted.
What they were asking for is an injunction to stop the implementation of the
Right.
Legal Professions Act until the lawsuit could be heard. And she
Okay.
said no. So
And she
now
said
we're
no.
waiting for the actual case, the case to be heard. It's going to be a big one. But in the meantime, movement is being done to change the whole Legal Professions Act, once again appointing government appointees to run the Law Society and instead of benchers, people who are elected by other lawyers. So, yeah, that's a really big deal too.
That's insane that you would get rid of okay, you got rid of the doctors. Okay, so you want to have a big harm. In fact, I just heard this the other day. I was talking to some people, and I was trying to explain about the HPOA, and some lady in the back says, "You mean Big Harma?" I'm like,
What's big harm?
yeah, she was like this cranky person. Like she had crazy hair, and she's like,
What's big harma?
big pharma, Big Harma.
Big harma.
As
Okay,
in
that's
harm.
I see.
Big harm,
Big
right?
Harma,
So
okay.
instead of Big Pharma, she says, "It's Big Harma." I've never heard that before. I'm like,
never
that's
heard it either.
that's brilliant. Big Harma. So anyways, yeah. Okay, look, let's you've got a million things to do, and I just thank you so much for the time. And it's
Thank
just
you.
been great to get to know you a little bit here, and hopefully our viewers get to know you a little bit. And I'm hoping you will come back.
Thank you, John. And if your viewers have any questions for next time, I'm really open to taking questions and even hard ones. And I have no secrets or anything to hide. Like, I just want to talk about what's been going on. And
Okay.
I'm here. And I would ask all your viewers, please take out a membership in our party. And
Okay.
or just check out our website. You can see that we have plans to deal with mass immigration and so on. We don't like it either. It's hurting our province. It's hurting our young people is what it's doing.
It really is.
I feel
All right.
bad for them because we had so much more opportunity, John.
Okay, well, we will continue this conversation, and I'll talk with Masha about setting up our talks. I really want to do a deeper dive into the LPA, and
Beautiful.
and I should have a disclaimer here. I should put in this disclaimer. This interview is not sponsored by anybody, and Dallas is here freely of her own free will.
Yeah.
I chose to do this interview, and I'm not AI. I am not. See, I have 10 fingers, and I can
And
do all
I'm not
sorts of
either.
things. And my fingers, they stay like they're supposed to. You don't see this hand go like that kind of thing. Yeah, we're not AI.
Not AI.
Nobody was harmed by AI in the production of this program. However, I did use Grok a lot in my research, and it was fantastic. So, Dallas, thank
Well,
you.
I'm still learning about Grok, and I'm going to get used to using some AI myself, but we'll never be able to replace human beings.
No,
We need them for everything, and remember to take care of our fellow human beings, and we need our plumbers and our electricians and our farmers, and AI can't do farming.
no. Well, I don't know. They've got automated. They've got these huge industrial farms where all the tractors and everything's automated. So they'll
Well, they can't do plumbing. Grok can't fix oh, please
yet.
don't tell me they can do that too. Anyway,
Well,
let's hope.
not inexpensively. It would cost a lot, but here's what it can't do, and I think people overlook this a lot, and that is somehow there's a whole bunch of families that are out behind my. I've never had people behind here ever before, and
Oh, maybe they're cheering for you.
well, no, I actually I was looking for something to do, and I cleared about 100 feet of brambles off a slope all the way down to the embankment to the slough, and then cleared all the grass, like took down all the weeds, and I made a really nice like 100 by 75-foot clearing. And I
Nice.
thought, how come nobody's ever using that? So it's just great to go down and sit by the water. And yeah, they waited until I was having my conversation with you, and then they all showed up. So
There you go.
that was like it's John talking to Brodie, to Dallas Brodie. So, anyways, what I was going to say about AI is, people say that there's a lot of talk about that, but the example I'm going to give is this one. An AI did not think to want to talk to you. An AI did not come up with the realization that, hey, there's shit going on in this province, and we need to talk to people who might be able to affect change. And it didn't think to search for John Rudstadt. A human had to do all of that. So
Correct.
there are massive limitations on AI, but it is coming, and there are a lot of jobs that are going to be eliminated. And
It's a tool.
again, universal basic income. So we can't have everybody doing crack cocaine and defecating on the streets.
No, no, no.
You know, we got to do something. So I'm looking forward to helping I'll help you grow. I'm going to talk about
Thanks,
OneBC.
John. So I'll do an interview anytime and take questions or whatever you like. And if you ever want me to come out and speak to even 5 people, I'll come. So just let me know. And I have really high hopes for our party. I really do. I think, and this fall in the Ledge, it's going to be, fire.
Okay. Going to be fire.
Okay.
Yes, fire.
Fire in the Ledge.
What's the Game
All
of
right.
Thrones? Fire and Ice? Something? Fire and Ice? I can't remember now.
Something like that.
Something like that.
All right.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say my goodbye here. So hang on one second. Hang on. No, don't go. Hang on. So again, that was Dallas Brodie, interim leader of OneBC, and I love that interview, that conversation. There's just so much to talk about here. All the links are below. The links to the LPA, the HPOA, and the EDMA are all below. If you want PTSD, you're perfectly free to read all of that. You might need a team of lawyers to figure out what's going on there. Dallas is in the background. She's laughing. And work with us. Talk about this. Share this stuff. Talk to your friends. Talk to family. And look into OneBC. It can't hurt. That's it for this edition of Total Health Magazine. Next week, Dr. Mark Trozzi. That's right, Dr. Mark Trozzi. If you don't know who he is, Google him. It's going to be another exciting conversation. That's it for me. I'm John Barson. Stay healthy and be safe.